It is 1948, and in post-war Italy, one man, Cino Cinelli, walks away from glory on the road to launch a tiny Milan workshop. He is not content to just build bikes. Within a decade, his radical components rewrite the rules of professional cycling. But what pushed a champion to risk everything on a handful of handmade parts, and how did Cinelli become a name that mechanics and racers everywhere came to trust? The real story begins here. Cino Cinelli stepped into Milan with more than a champion's reputation. He brought the discipline of a racer and the eye of a craftsman, determined to shape cycling from behind the workbench. In 1948, he established his namesake company on Viale Monza, a modest address that would become a landmark in Italian cycling. The move from Florence to Milan was not just about geography, it was a shift from a family trade to personal vision. Cino took over the production machinery from his brother Giotto, who had been building frames in Florence since the late 1930s. With that transfer, the Cinelli name became more than a badge on a down tube. The first Milan staff was small but close-knit. Cino himself, his Swiss wife Hedy, 2 office assistants, and 4 assemblers. Their early days were spent packing orders, filing lugs, and assembling bikes by hand. Between 1946 and late 1947, before the full move north, about 200 to 300 Cinelli Firenze frames had already rolled out of Florence. Now, in Milan, Cino set his sights higher. He wanted to supply not just bikes, but the parts that made them fast, safe, and reliable. Parallel to his workshop ambitions, Cino was already a force in cycling advocacy. In 1946, he co-founded the ACCPI, the Italian Professional Cyclists Association, alongside Fausto Coppi and Gino Bartali. For 24 years, he served as its president, shaping the rules and culture of the sport from within. This dual path, hands-on manufacturing and institutional leadership, gave Cinelli a rare credibility. The company was not just selling equipment, it was helping define what professional cycling could be. That foundation would soon draw the attention of racers and mechanics across Italy and beyond. By 1960, Cinelli's ambitions had moved beyond the workshop and onto the world stage. At the Rome Olympics, Cino Cinelli stood alongside Tullio Campagnolo, unveiling a forged aluminum stem that would become the new standard for professional cycling. The 1A stem, light yet strong, offered a leap forward in both safety and control, and its single hidden bolt and serrated clamp delivered a secure fit without damaging handlebars, a detail that quickly won over the sport's most demanding mechanics. The Rome debut was more than a product launch. It was a statement to the cycling world. The cockpit, the interface between rider and machine, would now be defined by Cinelli's engineering. Professional teams, always searching for marginal gains, began specifying Cinelli bars and stems as essential equipment. The logic was simple: reliable components meant fewer failures, smoother handling, and confidence in the breakaway or bunch sprint. Mechanics trusted Cinelli not just for performance, but for the consistency that came from rigorous production standards. Soon, the Unicanitor saddle joined the lineup. Developed with Tommaso Nieddu and Vittoria, it was the first saddle with a plastic shell wrapped in buffalo hide for comfort and grip. Riders found it lighter and more durable than the all-leather saddles they had been reshaping for years. The Unicanitor and the 1A stem became fixtures in the pro peloton, their presence stretching from Italian classics to the Tour de France. As Cinelli components spread through federations, clubs, and amateur ranks, the brand's reputation grew beyond the frames. By the end of the decade, Cinelli was the name mechanics reached for when precision and reliability mattered most. The company's authority rested not on marketing, but on the quiet confidence of parts that delivered under pressure. In 1978, a new chapter began for Cinelli when Antonio Colombo, already known for leading Columbus, the premier supplier of high-performance bicycle tubing, became a shareholder. The timing was no accident. By the late 1970s, Cinelli's Milan factory was running at full tilt, producing 150,000 bars and stems each year. Cino Cinelli, approaching retirement, recognized that the next leap would require more than the steady hand of a craftsman. It would need the resources and vision of someone who understood both the art and science of bicycle design on a larger scale. Colombo's arrival brought more than capital. His deep ties to Columbus meant that Cinelli could now draw directly from the world's most advanced tubing technologies. This synergy opened doors for new kinds of research and development, making it possible to imagine frames and components that pushed beyond tradition. For a brief period, Andrea Cinelli, Cino's son, served as president, bridging the founding family's ethos with Colombo's industrial ambitions. Their collaboration kept the company's culture intact while allowing for a careful handover. The ownership structure continued to evolve. By 1983, Colombo held the majority stake and assumed full control. With Cino stepping away from daily operations, the company stood poised to move from a heritage of component mastery into a future defined by experimentation and integrated design. The infusion of industrial resources, technical expertise, and a willingness to invest in bold ideas set the stage for Cinelli's next transformation, one where the boundaries of bicycle design would be tested in ways never before possible. A new energy pulsed through Cinelli's Milan headquarters in the 1980s. With Antonio Colombo at the helm, the design team began to question every assumption about what a racing bicycle could be. The old formulas, straight tubes, simple lines, minimal flair, gave way to a period of wild experimentation. The workshop became a laboratory, and each prototype carried the possibility of both breakthrough and dead end. One of the first visible signs came in 1977 when the team introduced the top tube cable brazions. It was a small detail, but it hinted at a willingness to bring technical solutions out into the open, to treat the frame as a platform for new thinking. Soon after, Cinelli's ambitions grew bolder. In 1983, the Gold and Black model appeared in the catalog. Its black paint, black anodized components, and gold-plated steel parts made it an aesthetic outlier, a bike that looked as if it belonged in a gallery as much as on the road. It wasn't just about beauty, it was about declaring that form and function could challenge tradition together. But it was the Laser, debuting in 1984, that pushed the limits furthest. Built from Columbus tubing, the Laser's frame abandoned the classic diamond silhouette in favor of swooping lines and hidden wells. The team obsessed over every joint, experimenting with internal cable routing and integrated seat clusters. Each Laser was a one-off, shaped by hand, tested in wind tunnels, and refined through trial and error. Some frames bent the rules of aerodynamics, others bent under pressure. Failure was part of the process. The pursuit was always for marginal gains, less drag, more speed, and a visual impact that left no doubt. Cinelli was no longer content to play it safe. The 1980s closed with the company's reputation tied as much to risk-taking and spectacle as to the quiet reliability that built its name. By the early 2000s, city streets from Milan to San Francisco pulsed with a new kind of energy. Riders on stripped-down, brakeless bikes carved through traffic, drawing inspiration from the raw geometry of the track. The Cinelli Vigorelli, first released in 2005, became an instant icon. Its racing pedigree and bold graphics were impossible to miss at alley-cat starts and midnight street crits. Urban collectives and messenger crews gravitated to the frame, drawn by its aggressive lines and deep ties to Italian cycling history. Collaborations with groups like MASH Safe turned limited edition runs into cult objects, each one snapped up by riders eager to blur the line between sport and street art. Even as the scene exploded, the Vigorelli's DNA stayed true to its roots, fast, uncompromising, and unmistakably Cinelli. The fixed gear boom did not just revive a classic, it proved that a decades-old design could still set the pace for a new generation. Inside Cinelli's Milan headquarters, two worlds operate side by side. On one bench, a craftsman brasses the lugs of a steel Supercorsa frame, a model still built today, just as it was in the 1950s. Across the room, engineers lay up carbon fiber, shaping tubes for road, gravel and track bikes that will race across continents. This is the Cinelli of now, a workshop where tradition and technology meet. The current lineup stretches from hand-brazed steel classics to advanced carbon machines, each designed for a different kind of ride, but sharing the same Italian spirit. Every frame, steel or carbon, reflects decades of accumulated knowledge tested on roads, velodromes, and gravel trails. The design team, drawing on both heritage and innovation, keeps Cinelli relevant in a world where cycling is more diverse than ever. Innovation still defines Italian cycling, and Cinelli refuses to stand still. As new riders demand both heritage and technology, the brand's experiments shape what is possible on two wheels. The future of cycling is not written yet, but Cinelli keeps drawing the first lines. Share your thoughts below.